Hello and welcome back to Wildcard FBL. We're going to be talking about how we got on in Game Week 13. We're going to be talking about transfer plans as well. Is it time for me to get back in Haaland? We're going to be talking about the rise of the budget midfielder and could that be an enabler for other players, better attacks? And we're also going to be saying if you're really enjoying the content, please do like and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So, looking at our teams over from Game Week 13, Alf, who are your too good, too bad for the last game week?
From a good perspective, I'll pop Haaland in there. Captained him, didn't haul, wasn't Erling Haaland, so to speak, but he got a goal. I think he got a bonus point as well, so not a bad showing. I'd take that every day as a captaincy pick. And then Gabriel, I'm happy to have him back in my team. He got a clean sheet, 4.7 mil defender. I think we'll start seeing Gabriel on a lot of people's hit lists in the next few weeks. There is a little bit of a risk of rotation perhaps, but feeling good about him at the moment. So happy I've got him in my team. Too bad, I had an absolute shocker. All week I'd planned to do Mitoma for Gibbs-White. On the last
I can vouch for that. It wasn't just words. I can absolutely vouch for that. Not just words.
Yeah,
you genuinely had him in there. Yeah.
Planned every day. I'd ping the chat and I'd say I'm still on Mitoma to Gibbs-White, and then the last 2 minutes of the deadline, I was just thinking about it, and I saw Eze there on pens against Luton, and I'd made that move. Gibbs-White scored, I think, something like 16 points. He scored a pen, got an assist, got 3 or 2 BPs, and then Eze got subbed at 48 minutes with an injury and a 1-pointer. So an absolute shocker for me. Really disappointed in that. I got to kind of stick to my guns going forward. And then Matty Cash, just what a crap game he had against Spurs. He just looked didn't know what he was doing on the right of midfield there. Almost got a red card. He ended on 0 points. I genuinely think that he is one of the worst transfers I've done. Since I've got him, I think he's accumulated like 3 or 4 points or something like that. So Matty Cash, I had high hopes, and it's just absolutely failed that one. So yeah, that's me. How about you?
My too good. Well, I was one of the people who got rid of Cash. I've had Cash for a little while. He did well for me initially, but yeah, he has been on the wane. I got rid of him, and I got rid of him for Saliba, so that was actually a good move. I had 2 free transfers. I only used 1 free transfer, which was Cash to Saliba. And as Cash came off at half-time, I think in the Spurs game, that was like 6 points, clear win. The other one was Lascelles. Clean sheet gone against Chelsea, and then suddenly he pops up with a goal. That's the sort of luck you need sometimes in FBL. So I was delighted with that. Overall, it wasn't a fantastic game week for me, but yeah, those lads definitely helped. The too bad, I have to say, Diaby, who I think is probably going to be on the chopping block within the next week or two, but then Son, captain, he got unlucky a few times, but he really looks like he is missing James Maddison. The positions he was taking up, he just wasn't being found by Kulusevski or some of the other midfielders. He really misses James Maddison, who really was on his wavelength. So I think for me, the moment James Maddison went out of the team, I should have been moving Son out faster. Ever since Maddison's gone, Son's done pretty much nothing. So it was I don't have Haaland, so Son as captain was a bit of a Hail Mary, but didn't work out. And now I think Son is on the chopping block, which is what we will come on to that later. It was interesting, Alf, when you were talking about Eze at Luton. Again, it is that away fixture at Luton. I really believe it is not the fixture to target anymore. I think Luton at another team's home ground, I think is probably more likely to be the one to be targeted. But yeah, Luton away is looking like a really tricky fixture.
Yeah, I don't think that we should be looking at LUT in the future and just assume it's going to be a decent fixture for the team who are playing them 100%. I think if they're away, then by all means, like probably a good move to get people who are playing against them. But yeah, I think there's something going on with that ground, and they'll just get more and more confidence at home as well. So, they had that really good win on the weekend. I totally agree with you. I think Luton, for them at home, fixture is going to be very tough for a lot of teams. So yeah. I was just going to ask, so you did cash to Saliba before that game week?
Yes.
Wow, yes. That is an absolute... I don't think you've got the props you deserve for that move. That's an absolute masterstroke. You kept that quiet on the chat, didn't you?
Maybe. I think if I'd had a better game week, maybe I'd have been more a bit louder with that. But I think the other thing as well is that I did have Zinchenko in my targets, who ended up with 9 points, and that would have actually seen me to a green arrow. I missed out the green arrow by 1 point, or I am at least missing it out by 1 point at the moment. Fulham are playing tonight, so who knows? I'll probably miss it by a few, but I think that would have got me there. But for some reason, I had it in my head that Zinchenko might be a bit of a rotation risk for some reason. But look, I'm happy with Saliba. He's going to play every week, and I think I needed an Arsenal defender. It was the right way to go.
So at time recording, I'm actually plus 15,000, so a very small green arrow for me, but I will 100% take that at this point. I'm just sitting at the just under the 800k mark at the moment, so I feel okay about that. I'd take that at this point, to be honest. What we got 2/3 of the season to go. There's a lot of room to be made and lots of improvements. I feel good about that at this point.
Any sort of green arrow right now is probably pretty decent, and I think when we look at the average score being so low, a score of anywhere plus 50 is going to be great. So yeah, well done for that. Hopefully the rest of you out there have had a better week than me. I'm on 41. I am on a small red arrow. I think actually it's an acceptable red arrow. I think it's like 100,000 places. It isn't a
sideways. Yeah, a sideways week for you.
It is. It's not too bad. It could have been far worse. When you think I don't have Haaland, he was a lot of people's captain. If leaky Liverpool FC had shown up instead of and conceded 4 or 5 goals, then it would have been a terrible situation for me. But thankfully, he only got the one. That does bring us on to though some talking points and around some transfer plans for next week. So, Alf, you have had Haaland all the way through. And in game week 8, I think it was game week 8 wildcard, I made the decision to get rid of him. And actually, I think overall I've probably done okay, because I've got some other decisions right as well. The 1 week where it all went wrong was when we all had Watkins as captain, but let's not talk about that. But because it was a terrible week for all 4 of us. But yeah, I think the Haaland situation for me, it was a good experiment. But I always plan to get him in for game week 16 anyway. Game week 14 is now I feel like I want to have him back. So I think right now I'm looking at getting him back in. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's the right time, too early, or are you thinking actually, Steve, just do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just got to be tough, isn't it? I can't imagine if it was me in your situation. I've had this is why I have a team packed full of the likes of Salah, Son, Watkins, Haaland. I did that purposefully because I wanted to make sure I had all those players. And when I don't have those players that can hurt you, it does make the weekend a little bit harder. I have to firstly say, props to you for going ahead with it, because I don't have the minerals for that sort of move. And I think it was an important experiment. We're a team here at Wildcard FPL, and we've got to be trying these things out to see how they work, and testing different types of strategies. I think that's important. But it might be time, right? So who do they have? They have
Spurs. I thought Spurs defense looked. That game was wild. I can't believe that it only ended up 2-1 to Villa. That game was just ludicrous in the first 5 minutes. No joke. It could have been 2-2 after 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and it was just mayhem. So if Spurs do that type of defending again against the likes of Haaland. Haaland will score a good couple of goals. So
Yeah,
I did think that was a decent one to get him back for, actually. So
I agree.
yeah,
I agree. I think if it was Spurs
looks
2
good.
weeks ago, if it was Spurs 2-3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
even 4 weeks ago, then it'd be a completely different situation. But yeah, like you can really see Man City hurting that defense. So they had 4 fullbacks in defense, and if they have to do something like that versus Man City, at the Etihad, then you could really see this being Erling Haaland time, right? So yeah, I agree.
That's what it feels like to me. Yeah,
I agree with you. I think it might just be time if you can do it without too much surgery to your team, then it might just be worth getting him in. Who are you thinking about getting rid of to make some room for him?
so it's been on my mind for a few weeks to make sure that, and even when I brought in Saliba's expensive, right? So I had to make sure that I could still get Haaland in and not have to have like a terrible team. And I can do it. I've got 2 free transfers. Again, I've been saving those up. I can do Alvarez to Haaland, which I think is fine. Alvarez may do stuff over the next few weeks, but a lot of people tend to have Haaland instead of Alvarez. Few people have both of them. I think just getting him back is the most important thing. So Alvarez to Haaland. And do you know, I really want to hang on to Watkins for one more week. And I really want to hang on to Darwin. He really was the nearly man and has been the nearly man for a couple of weeks now. He is so close to just going absolutely berserk and scoring a ton of goals.
Yeah.
But he's returning 1-pointers at the moment. But he looks really, really close to it. And I'm not prepared to give him up before he's got Fulham and he's got Sheffield United coming up as well. I've got to give him a few more weeks. So yeah, Alvarez to Haaland. Then I'm going to get rid of Bowen. I love Bowen, but I don't really like West Ham at the moment. I know that you feel the same. Obviously, we've both got Areola in goal.
Sucks. Yeah.
And West Ham are not looking terrific. So Bowen out, and at the moment I'm going to bring in Garnacho, which is a bit of a weird one. But I just feel like after scoring that goal against Everton, I feel like Eric Ten Hag might just give him a bit of a longer run out, and they've got a couple of good fixtures coming up, United. But then, yeah, my plan would be a couple of weeks of Garnacho. Then I think when I look to make some other moves around, I probably will then be able to upgrade him slightly to somebody else. But there's that. And then the last one is going to be a big money saver, which is Son out to Mbeumo. Mbeumo's got some great fixtures coming up. And we've already discussed, like, I don't really like the look of Son or Spurs at the moment. Even though I'm a big Son fan, I don't like the look of it. So that's it. So Alvarez to Haaland, Bowen to Garnacho, Son to Mbeumo is my plans.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I do think that Son could really do some things over the next few weeks. Well, it's FPL. It's all luck, isn't it? At the end of the day, like you have to make these decisions that should get you more points, right? That's the idea of it. But there is a lot of luck involved. I do feel as though and I know that you have to make room to get Haaland in, so it makes sense. The counter to that would be that it's going against the formula to get rid of Son, right? So, we mentioned this in the chat earlier. He's nailed. He's probably going to play. Injury, we're not sure, right? He may play 70 minutes, like minimum. But he is going to be mostly a 90-minute man. He's their captain, so he's nailed. He's on pens. They don't have Europe. So, like, there is that element to it. They are going to be able to get rested, which other teams aren't, which is why I'm really quite bullish on Son versus a Gordon, because their fixtures are they've got Champions League. They're going to probably have Europa. They're still fighting for Europa. I don't want to be that guy, the devil's advocate sort of person here, but it is just worth thinking about the fact that Son is going to be a handy asset, and you may well need to try and get him back at some point in the next few weeks. He's the type of guy that can just go and score an absolute worldy hat trick, isn't he? So that's sort of the nature of Son. Yeah,
I think their fixtures look a bit sketchy for a couple of weeks, but then they do clear up again.
Yeah. So who do they have? Let's go through it. So they've got they got City obviously coming up away. That's awful. So West Ham at Tottenham, game week 15. They've got Newcastle at home. That's going to be a spicy fixture. I could see Son scoring a couple of bangers in that game. Then they got Forest away, which is not Forest at home are a very decent team. We've talked about that before.
Yep.
And then they've got Everton at home. So a couple of like topsy fixtures coming up for Spurs, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I think if you're able to, because I'm in a similar situation, and I'm thinking Mbeumo for Son perhaps in the next few weeks. If you can find that player who's going to get, around the same amount, if not more points than Son, then everyone's happy, right? I think that's going to be the challenge. It might not necessarily just be about getting Haaland in, but also replacing Son with someone who is going to be kind of getting those points in over the next few weeks.
So Son to Mbeumo makes sense for next week in particular. Mbeumo has Luton at home, and we spoke about Luton away not being the fixture to target, but this is a different kettle of fish. And coming down to Brentford, I think Mbeumo would do quite a lot in that game. Son versus City, I think that Spurs will lose that quite heavily. Sorry, John, but I think that's how it's going to be. So I think next week in particular, and then after that, then I've got a few more. I've got a few more tricks up my sleeve in terms of plans. But the plans go out the window, right? Because suddenly I bring Haaland in, he picks up an injury, he's out for 6 months. Who knows? But it's going to be a tricky couple of weeks. But I think I'm pretty sold on that plan at the moment, getting rid of Son. I was looking at the top 10 in the world. Only 3 of the top 10 in the world have Son in their team.
Wow, that's a great little factoid right there. Yeah,
so it made me feel like I'm not that concerned about getting rid of him. I just got to make sure I cover who's coming in and that they're going to be decent enough.
Yeah, that's the challenge for sure. Because Haaland's not always going to get a hat-trick, as we know, right? He's had his off days. So that's another part of it, right? Like, there's pain to be had. There's pain to be had here.
Crazy.
No, he hasn't, has he?
Of course. Yeah, look. But then it almost becomes a bit of like, I'm probably going to be in the... if I come back into the Haaland camp, that's at least one step in the right direction, I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a good... Like I said, it was a good experiment. I went up from like down in the 4 millions to 2.7. So, onwards and upwards.
I love it. It's like one of those things we'll look back on in a few years. Do you remember when Stephen Bear didn't do Haaland for like 3 or 4 game weeks?
Yeah,
he had the balls to do that. Fantastic stuff. One thing I've just seen, and this relates to transfer plans, is that Eze is reportedly out for 3 to 4 weeks, and that's just been confirmed by our friend FPL Focal on Twitter, or X, as you are supposed to be calling it nowadays. That's an issue for me.
What does that do for you?
It actually kind of helps me a little bit, and I'll tell you why that helps me. It helps me because I was thinking to myself, I'll just keep Eze for a few weeks. But now that he's injured, I didn't feel good about keeping him. I've never had him. I know you've been bitten by the Eze spider in the past. And you didn't get any superpowers. So, I think from my perspective, it actually helps because it means I do need to address that and get rid of him. So I'm thinking Eze to Mbeumo would be perhaps the move. I can do that. But right now, the window is 0.2 mil for me. So if Eze reduces in price and Mbeumo continues to increase in price, I'm going to get priced out of that particular transfer. So I need to keep my eye on that. I do have 2 free transfers going into the next game week. So I could do Son to Mbeumo, and then perhaps Eze to Gibbs-White. I think that's the move I'm going to make, and it's the move I should have made last week. So it just feels right now to actually make that happen. Gibbs-White is on pens. He's playing for Nottingham Forest. they're not the most informed team at the moment, but I feel good about having him in my team. So I could do that. 2 midfield transfers feels extremely kind of high drama.
Changing it up. It's changing it up a lot.
It's changing it up, isn't it? Yeah, it's a bit, perhaps a bit too much. If I bottle that and don't do the 2, I may just do Eze to Mbeumo and then just keep Son and just see what happens, and then I probably won't do Gibbs-White like at any point. That's kind of how it works now, isn't it? I probably missed that boat. I missed the haul, so I need to perhaps just put that down.
Potentially, but I think last week when we were looking at their fixtures, I'm convinced that we said that they were good for a few. They had a few good fixtures in a row.
Yeah, correct. So you're absolutely right.
Maybe you haven't missed it.
They've got Everton coming up at home. I like that fixture. I actually think there's going to be lots of goals in that fixture. That's also the 4:30. 4:30 on a Saturday. That's going to be banging, isn't it? Sorry, 5:30 on a Saturday. That is going to be, as you say, nice. Steve, prime time Premier League. So I'm thinking maybe that is actually looking pretty tasty. Then they've got Fulham away, and then we're looking at Wolves away. Again, these are all potential goal fests, really, aren't they? And then Spurs at home, game week 17. And then they got Bournemouth at home.
We know that Spurs could show up with another four defenders. Sorry, another 4 fullbacks in defence. So yeah, then you say Bournemouth at home, right? So they're
Bournemouth
good for
at home. They are, and then let's just keep going here. And then Newcastle away. So their nice spell. No. Yeah. Well, their nice sort of spell. To your point. Finishes game week 19. That's actually pretty decent. So
I think so. Yeah.
Gibbs-White. Gibbs-White could be the man. Maybe I just do straight. Maybe I avoid Mbeumo. We've been talking about going against the template move, and you know how last week was Eze. This week it's definitely Mbeumo. Everyone's talking about Mbeumo. So maybe it could be for me to get a little bit of a differential in. Maybe this week's differential call would be Eze to Gibbs-White.
And that's why I'm thinking Garnacho as well. So
love that.
Yeah.
Love
Gibbs-White and Garnacho, 2 definitely non-template midfielders who I need to Gibbs-White will play 90 minutes, no problem. I need 100%. To keep an eye on how Garnacho plays in the Champions League. But if I was Erik ten Hag, I would not be thinking about maybe it's time to bench Garnacho. You can see what the guy can do. He's obviously a very talented youngster. He just needs more and more time on the pitch. And who else are we going to play instead of Garnacho? Rashford on the left and Antony on the right? No way. Rashford can stick on the right. We'll have Garnacho on the left. And I think, I think I like it. Yes, I think Garnacho, Gibbs-White, two great picks. Great differentials. I think for you've got to do it. For me, I just need to watch the Champions League game, see how he gets through that, and but I think look, we got to believe in ourselves on this pod. We said last week about Gibbs-White. I've said things about Pau Torres in the past and haven't yet committed to that. I think it's time that we're time to break out of the mold.
Put our money where our mouth is, for sure.
Aside from bringing back Haaland, which I'm diving back into that mold. I'm saying, please, in that instance, mold me, hold me,
mold me.
But I'm also saying that let's do some other things outside of that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the way that we need to think. Okay, so let's think about the rest of the season, and the next few game weeks in particular. We're going to be capping either Salah or Haaland, right? Like that's the reality.
Yep.
Most people will be doing that. It makes sense. So if we think about our captains over the next few weeks, so Haaland, we're all pretty much going to do Haaland versus Spurs. Then Liverpool have Sheffield United away. And no, sorry, we're talking about game week 15 here. So Liverpool have Sheffield United away, and then City have Salah, Aston Villa away. So that could be Salah. I think we're agreed on that. Then we've got
so.
Luton away for Man City, so that's going to be That's going to be Haaland, isn't it? And
I
Liverpool
think that's probably
have
going to be
Crystal
the only
Palace
one
away.
where I would go out. That's the only one where I'd go outside of that. Luton away isn't an easy fixture. I would say I'd go outside of it for Haaland versus Luton. I have to say that because I know that I said Luton away is probably not the fixture to target. I think for every other team in the Premier League, or even maybe every other player in the Premier League, if Man City were playing Luton and Haaland was out for whatever reason, I would not be captaining another Man City player. It's only because it's Haaland versus Luton that I would do that week. But yeah, I think there seems to be a nice rotation between the two, doesn't there?
There does, and the reason I'm saying that is because I think because we're making those decisions and we're going with those kind of high ceiling players like Haaland and Salah, we can try and get a little bit sneaky with these other players. Like having Saka, is that really gonna sort of get us? It's just such a template hold, isn't it? Like, I think we can perhaps try and be a bit more bold about, the likes of. We've talked about it, right? Like we talked about these different midfielders that are out there that are actually worth a punt.
Well, that brings us on actually. That brings us on to something that we wanted to talk about on here, which is we have all these premium players, and you think about FPL over the last few seasons: Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, Son, all these premium midfielders,
Saka,
and actually now we've seen
Salah,
Odegaard,
Bowen.
We've seen the rise of the budget. We've seen the rise of the budget midfielder, and it's actually freed up more cash everywhere. You think Mbeumo is now 7 mil, but he started off way lower than that. And yeah, I think we've got a few on the list here. We've got Palmer, Gordon, Adringa, Gibbs-White, Douglas Luiz, Hee-Chan, Jensen. All of these players I just mentioned are outscoring someone like Odegaard, who last season was cranking out point after point after point.
Yeah.
So
Rashford,
I think it's
outscoring Rashford.
What are your massively outscoring Rashford? Outscoring Rashford. I think Sheffield United's one of their defenders is outscoring Rashford. But I think when you look at this, I think it could be the case that maybe Son has had his day in the sun for a few game weeks, and that's why we're thinking about moving off the likes of Son onto someone like we're talking now about Mbeumo, Gibbs-White. We have these players who are like this level down in FPL terms. What are we've talked about Gibbs-White, and I really hope you do it. Let's talk about Palmer, let's talk about Gordon especially, but also the others we mentioned: Adringa, Douglas Luiz, Hee-Chan, and Jensen.
Yeah, I think we've discussed it a little bit. I mean, me getting Palmer in was actually an enabler when I first did it. I actually benched him for that haul he got a couple of weeks ago, which is annoying. But it turns out that he is actually a very decent asset. Like, he's going to be getting some goals. He's on a lot of set pieces. He's on pens. So when you think about that, and again, think about the formula, if you will, that we've been talking about here. No Europe, nailed, on pens, 90 minutes. Like, those 4 points there are really what we need to be looking at. Palmer fits that bill 100%. Gibbs-White fits that bill 100%. Douglas Luiz, he perhaps doesn't because he does have Europe, but I think they've got enough on the bench there to perhaps give him a rest when they need to. So he would actually sit in that bracket as well, I think. Perhaps a little bit of an outsider there. I think Palmer, Gibbs-White, for me, really are two assets that everyone needs to start looking at for those reasons. Fixtures are absolutely crazy. They're all playing way too much football, and we've got Christmas coming up. Is keeping Saka even a good idea at this point, given how many games he's about to play? Like, is the move getting rid of a Saka for a Gibbs-White? Like, I don't hate that, but that's going to be very, very brave. That's going to be one of those ones where it could be a weekend ruiner. But this is where you're gonna start picking up some points if you start making those bold moves. And again, if you've got that safety net of a Salah, Haaland captain, it's not going to hurt you too much because no one else is going to be captaining a Saka, are they? No, really. We're looking
Saka
at most of
yet.
He's not hauled, is he? He's not hauled.
Saka hasn't yet done a double-digit crazy week.
Yeah,
he's done an assist here, a goal here. So yeah,
he's effective. It's not going to be effective. He's a good player. Really he's consistent. Yeah, really, really, very much so. And I think, and I said this on the weekend when Arsenal have not been playing well, and they are grinding out those 3-point results. And I think when they start clicking, I think they're going to be some real trouble for a lot of teams. But I do just wonder, a very bold punt at this point perhaps would be, a Saka to a Gibbs-White. Like now that I'm even saying that, like I'm actually considering that myself. You know what I mean? Like I've almost talked myself into Saka to Gibbs-White. And lots of I'm sure I'll get absolutely rinsed in the comments for saying that. And it's almost absurd to think about. But when you break it down over the next few weeks and months, I actually think it's really not a bad punt, is it?
I saw some people captain Saka this weekend. Some of the mini leagues I'm in, people were captaining Saka. And it worked out okay for them. Definitely better than some, but it was a risky fixture to captain Saka in versus Brentford. But yeah, Saka to Gibbs-White, it seems very bold. Very bold, yeah. Very bold. Saka to Palmer, though, feels like it's not as crazy. And it's Saka to Palmer, is what? Palmer's 5.2 now. He's come up a lot very, very quickly.
Yeah, hasn't he?
Yeah, getting rid of Saka. Getting rid of an Arsenal player for a Chelsea one. And yet, they got, what do they get? Battered by Newcastle. But it's going to happen from time to time. Newcastle's away is a crazy hard fixture.
Yeah.
I will find out. United have to go there this weekend coming, after having gone away into Turkey in the Galatasaray. So goodness knows what the score is going to be there. But yeah, I think that's why I quite like the idea of Gordon. He doesn't seem to be that injury prone, which I like. He seems to be pretty fit. He's able to sort of crank out the games. It's like, I think someone like an Isak or a Wilson just seems to be a bit way more injury prone. Gordon just seems to be able to churn out the games. Yeah,
and they need him, right? Like massively on the left with Harvey Barnes being out. There's one thing, and you can actually check his points. It's almost a trend that Gordon pretty much returns on every home fixture he has, but he's not getting any returns when they're playing away. It's almost become like an actual pattern. Which is really interesting. So if we just, again, let's take a look at some fixtures. For game week 14, Newcastle have got Man United at home, right? So perhaps not a bad time to be thinking about getting Gordon in. That's nothing against Man United, Steve. It's just more about what we're talking about with Gordon.
No, I called it. I mean, they've got to go to Galatasaray. But also, they've got to go to Galatasaray in Turkey for the Champions League, United, and they've got to get something there. But then they've got to arrive back and then get their head straight for playing Newcastle away. So, and they played Everton away last week, so they'll be on the road.
Yeah, it's a lot.
3 away games in a row.
It's a lot.
Horrendously tough. They don't have a very big squad. We've got a really small squad. Injuries, although I have to say it was really nice to see Luke Shaw back. So.
He looks great. He looks really good, doesn't he?
United's fixtures are a bit terrible for a while, but when their fixtures clear up, and I can't remember when that is, but when their fixtures clear up a little bit, I will definitely be having a long look at Luke Shaw again, because he's normally great for FPL when he's playing.
Totally agree. And then to go back to the Newcastle thing. So Everton then away in game week 15. Then they've got Spurs away, and then this will be the last one we'll do. And then Newcastle got Fulham at home. So like, Gordon's actually he's probably a very good pick at this point as well. And as you say, he's 5.2. So again, thinking to who you're taking out for someone like Gordon. For me, it's not a bad shout for me to pop him back into my team because I had him pre-Wildcard. which is heartbreaking.
Son to Gordon.
Son to Gordon or Eze to Gordon. Like that's very achievable. Man.
Jensen versus Sheffield United.
Jensen, yeah.
Maybe Mbeumo. Jensen instead of Mbeumo.
Would you do that? Would you do that? Jensen's definitely a midfielder. Sure. Jensen's definitely a midfielder playing in midfield. And Mbeumo is a midfielder playing in attack, and he's on
playing
pens.
up front. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for me, I think... Jensen's a good shout. He's done very well, hasn't he? Yeah.
But then Hee-Chan of Wolves, I think people expected Hee-Chan to stop scoring once Pedro Neto went out, but he's done okay since then. So I don't know how far away Pedro Neto is, because if Pedro Neto was fit, he'd be on this list as well. The rise of the budget midfielder.
100%.
Pedro
100%.
Neto. I was gonna get it. I was watching him in the game. He was playing the game. He got injured. I was watching and I was saying, this guy looks fantastic. He is in my team this week, and then his hamstring went. So I was just like, crikey, that is unlucky for that guy. But I'm still massively interested. So whenever he comes back, I'm interested, because he is cheap, and Neto was killing it.
Yeah, let's just go through their fixtures real quick. So they've got Arsenal away, not a great fixture, and I'll be at that game. Then they've got Burnley at home. Ooh, that's a cracking fixture. Then they've got Nottingham Forest at home. So again, Nottingham Forest are a decent-ish team, but Wolves being at home, you've got to expect them to do something at their ground. Yeah.
Then
they've got West Ham, who are extremely leaky. So there's West Ham away.
Yeah,
I think Wolves will get a couple of goals on that. Then they've got Then they've got Chelsea at home, and then finally,
but Chelsea like to leak a goal or two, don't they?
They do, yeah, exactly. I mean, they've not exactly been... people have been saying they're one of the better team defensively, but are they really? I'm not sure. Recently, it's a thing whatsoever.
4-1.
And they've conceded 4 goals against Man City. And you know what? Chelsea didn't play that well against Spurs. That crazy Spurs game. Everyone keeps saying how they're in a bit of form. They didn't play well. They were really struggling against that high line. Then they got Wolves have got Brentford away on game week 19, and then just to finish it up, they've got Everton at home game week 20. So that's a very good fixture.
There's a lot of good fixtures in there.
Yeah, Hee-Chan, man, that's a really good shout. Really good shout.
Crikey.
I like these
I'm
picks.
gonna have to really look into that.
I like these picks a lot. Palmer, Gordon, Gibbs-White.
These are good moves. And what are you losing out of this? You're losing. If Son's going to be chipping in 2 points, 4 points, even if Son scores a goal, he's going to be getting 6 points, something like that. It's not going to do that much for your rank. But these guys, their points count for it's weird to say, but their points count for more because of the low ownership.
Exactly.
So a goal from Gibbs-White, it doesn't even have to be. Smaller returns can probably help as well. So, a Hee-Chan goal suddenly makes a massive difference. Look, let us know in the comments below, what are your transfer plans? If you've got any questions, then hit us up. You can also get us on Twitter. Our handles will be floating around the screen somewhere as well. And if you've got any comments, are we mad to be talking about the likes of Gibbs-White, bringing in, getting rid of Son, getting rid of Saka? Let us know. And if you've got any questions or anything any topics you want us to tackle over the next few weeks, then hit us up as well. I know that some players out there are starting to think about things like free hits coming up. I wouldn't be doing that anytime soon. We're not really talking about triple captains. We're talking about potential double game week coming up in game week 20, which may interest some triple captainers out there. So if you're thinking about playing a chip and you need us to talk you off the ledge, then let us know. But other than that, that's all from us this week here at Wildcard FPL, and we will see you next week.